Hey, what's going on, people? It's the Black Rose here, and I've decided that I need to hop in here and do some predictions for Fallout Season 3, even though it's freaking way too soon to do it, because I believe I know what Phase 2 is. We've been seeing this Phase 2 get plugged throughout Season 2 here, and I believe I know what it is, and I think I know what the whole real experiment with Vaults 31, 32, and 33 is as it's exciting. I can't believe I've got it, but I think I know what Kilter's setting up here. So yeah, and it answers another question, which is why 32 and 33? Like why they need two of those non-management vaults? I think I've got it all figured out. I'm so excited. Yes, right. So on the surface, after Norm's broken everyone out of their cryopods, this guy Ronnie introduces himself, and he asks, "Is it time for Phase 2?" Then, like Norm looks at him all confused, because Norm's, he's acting at this point, like he's pretending he's someone he's not, and they think that he has information that he doesn't have, so he just kind of narrow eyes at Ronnie the whole conversation, and it gets kind of awkward. So yeah, Ronnie explains that he was Bud's assistant, and then he was in the room for conversations about all the vault experiments. Right, so Norm doesn't understand, but he can't say anything because he doesn't have the information he needs. So he just kind of keeps staring at Ronnie, trying to play it off like he's just a tough boss. Yeah, Ronnie just he keeps trying to clarify. He says, "Future Enterprise Ventures," and Norm just keeps staring at him. Then he puts it as simply as he possibly can: the whole plan for Vaults 32 and 33. So whatever this Future Enterprise Ventures is, it seems like that's kind of the title of the experiment, kind of Future Enterprise Ventures, right? So yeah, Norm tries to maintain the appearance. He's trying to keep pretending that he's Bud's successor, right? So he tries to deflect. He asks Ronnie like what he knows about it. See if maybe he can get information out of Ronnie, but really, really he just needs the information, right? So yeah, and Ronnie's vague. He simply says he knows that Phase 2 is important to the experiment. So I don't think Ronnie really knows what it is. I think that's just a corporate power play. He was the assistant. He doesn't know what they were really talking about. Right, so yeah, then later, when Norm is snooping around on Mrs. Howard's terminal, he searches for Future Enterprise Ventures, because that's what Ronnie had said to him, and that brings up FEV in the search results, because of those initials, Future Enterprise Ventures, and we know that FEV, from being Fallout fans, is the Forced Evolution virus, which is what Norm finds. Right, so he looks at it, and the text we can see on screen says FEV, Forced Evolutionary Virus, is the gene altering. You don't actually see the whole word, but I imagine it says altering. Yeah, gene altering agent for organism supercharging. The following is that's all we see. So here's what I think's going on here. I think the Enclave found a way to muscle in on Bud's trio of vaults down there. What he was planning for managing the wasteland, whatever. Probably with money. The Enclave probably invested money in this little plan of Bud's, and that's how they got in. Right, and when they were in meetings with Bud, they referred to this Future Enterprise Ventures thing, it's really FEV. Like, they're just calling it Future Enterprise Ventures in code just to get Bud to sign, what they need him to sign, but really what they're doing is they're hiding supplies of the Forced Evolution virus in the vaults. Right, and, I guess Ronnie doesn't really know what's going on. He's just the assistant, yeah. And I don't think Bud does either. I think the Enclave is playing him here. And this is where Hank comes in. To do whatever it is they were hoping to do, they needed someone on the inside. So I think part of what we're going to see in the pre-war storyline in the next season is the Enclave recruiting Hank. And I guess maybe partially Steph too, but she seems to be kind of in the dark, so mainly Hank. Because, they need him to activate the real experiment, what they really intend to do down there. Right, so yeah, that's where Hank gets roped in, and that's what leads us to Barb. So Hank was Barb's assistant, so I think what's going on is Barb's going to overhear something she's not supposed to, a conversation between an Enclave representative and Hank, and she's going to hear the phrase FEV, and yeah, she's going to search for that in her terminal, and that's why it's in her related searches field, you know, what Norm finds post-war, because she searched for it, and this search, you know, leads her to getting found out. Like, you know, the Enclave, you know, wouldn't be in the computers if it didn't need to be, you know, the Enclave's burrow, so yeah, it must need to be in there, like, for Hank for some reason, so he knows what he's doing on his end, and right, and they find out that Barb's accessed FEV, so she knows too much. So this leads to Barb and I guess Janie as well getting detained by the Enclave. You know, like, they're like, oh, this information's, they've got it, we need to get them. And they end up getting taken to their fortress in the Colorado Rockies. That's where I believe the Enclave base that we've been seeing throughout the show is. It, you know, it makes sense knowing that we're going to Colorado, and it is snowy up there, so yeah. And when we think about it geographically, you know, Wilzig seemingly came to like the LA area from the west to get to Moldaver, and yeah, Colorado's kind of makes sense, right? So yep, that's what's up. So yeah, so what is phase 2? I think it's introducing the forced evolution virus to Vaults 32 and 33, but it's not just that, because let's face it, we've seen things like that before in Fallout. You know, what's the point of the Enclave just running this experiment again, unless there's something different about it? So yeah, what about the population of these vaults can give the Enclave data about the forced evolution virus that we haven't seen elsewhere, you know, in the games and in the show, wherever? So FEV is about genes, right? As we see in the terminal entry that Norm finds, you know, it says genetic, right? So yeah, it's about genes. So is there something specific going on with the genetics down in these vaults that the Enclave might be interested in? Yes, Reg's little club. I'm not going to say what exactly it is. I'm not sure if that's something I should be saying. So, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. It's all good. Right, so let's just call it selective breeding, right? So, yes, I think selective breeding is part of the experiment. I think the Enclave wants to see if less diverse genomes respond to FEV differently than more diverse ones. The marriage program that we saw with Lucy in the pilot is rigged. That's why there's 2 of those vaults down there. They're, you know, the overseers are intentionally rigging that program to breed people a certain way, and there being 2 of those vaults, you know, that are mainly excluded from each other. You know, the populations don't interact, at least not regularly. Like, that makes it harder for the vault dwellers to track their lineage, so they won't realize what's happening to them, that they're intentionally being bred a certain way. Right, so yeah, and that's resulted in the experimental group, which is Reg's club. Right, so yeah, some members of Reg's club think, you know, they think their relatives might have been related, but don't know. Like, that's why this program's intentionally making it so they can't really know. So what will this difference be? How will the forced evolution virus impact Reg's club differently than the control group? So I don't know. I don't think there's hints for this. Yeah, so I guess the closest thing, you know, from the games we can compare it to is Nightkin Super Mutants. You know, like that slightly better reaction to FEV, but yeah, I'm puzzled. But yeah, maybe it's something completely new. I don't know, but yeah. And thing is, I feel like Chet needs to survive. Like him becoming, you know, like a dumb super mutant, that'd be kind of sad. Right, so I mean, I could see them doing it. It's just like, it from what I've seen them doing with that character, that doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like they're setting him up for that kind of fate. You know, maybe he becomes, you know, a talking super mutant, or maybe he is in Reg's club and doesn't know. Yeah, like I was saying, like it seems like the breeding program is intended to obscure everyone's lineage. So maybe someone did a bit more than cousin stuff ahead of Chet's time, and now there's Chet. Right, so yeah, that's what's up. So, yep, that's about all I got here. Just wanted to make sure I got that prediction out before someone else figured it out. Right, so yeah, and I really like what they're setting up for the next season, with FEV, the Super Mutants, like we saw briefly with Cooper Howard, the Ghoul, and yeah, I do hope that is right. I like that we're gonna see, at least that we're theorizing we're gonna see FEV and Super Mutants play a big role next season. I think that's a very smart direction to go in, right? And right, I think the idea of Marcus leading an army of super mutants against the Enclave is just genius. That'd be a great story, especially for the show, because makes it so the soldiers the Enclave tried to create are their undoing, their demise. It's a nice poetic nature to that, Yeah, beautiful right there. So that's what I got for you today. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.